How about that game from Dearness Johnston? I mean, this was his first career start as an undrafted rookie free agent, or maybe late drafted. Either way, he wasn't a very highly touted prospect, and he had over 100 yards and a touchdown for the Cleveland Browns. He played fantastically, and that's really good to see if you're Cleveland, considering that Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are both down with injuries. You now know that you have a good safety net to fall back on in Dearness Johnston, just in case you ever need it. And hey, who knows, maybe he ends up going somewhere and becoming a quality starting back. And speaking of backups, Case Keenum also ended up getting the start for an injured Baker Mayfield, and he looked sharp out there. Wasn't doing anything too spectacular, didn't really look like how he did back in 2017 with the Minnesota Vikings, but he was already familiar with the offense and Kevin Stefanski, and I mean, he looked sharp, he looked good. I can't really complain with how Keenum played. I think it would be appropriate to label him as the best backup in the league. And a nice welcome back was Jarvis Landry. He was on IR with a knee injury, and he played well. Had 5 catches, not a lot of yards, I think about 40 yards, but he ended up getting injured towards the end of the game, so hopefully everything stays well with him, because he really he brought the Browns offense together, really, and even though it wasn't too much of an impact, you still gotta respect him when you're covering him downfield. And I gotta say, the defense had a really good bounce back game after a couple of rough performances. You know, you had that game against the Chargers where you allowed 49 points. Last week against the Cardinals, you allowed 35 plus points. And I think if you come out today, you play a really nice game defensively on short rest, that gives that team a lot of confidence and a momentum boost going forward. And I have to say, I don't think a 4-3 record is really representative of what kind of team the Browns are. I mean, if you look at their 3 losses, they had a really close loss against the Chargers, and then, you know, the loss against the Cardinals, they were injured. Poor conditions really wasn't the best game for the Browns. But if you look at the Browns as a team in general, they have a lot of talent, and they are really well coached, and, you know, close losses, I don't think the Browns are really truly a 4-3 team. I think they are still a very good team. I mean, they showed that last year, but I think Kevin Stefanski, as long as he's at the helm as a head coach, I think the Browns are always going to be a playoff contender. So I'm really not exaggerating with the title of this video. I truly do believe the Broncos offense is broken, and I wouldn't be surprised within the next week or two that we see Pat Shurmur getting fired, which is a shame because I really like him, and he's a good play caller, but his scheme just doesn't seem to be working all too well. And I really don't think Bridgewater is all too good of a quarterback. He had a nice start to the season, but really hasn't looked all that special. I see him trying to be more aggressive downfield, which is good since he was really passive as a quarterback last year. But we've been seeing mixed results when he's being more aggressive, and he's still afraid to take these shots downfield, which sucks because if you look at the Broncos weapons, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy when he's healthy, KJ Hamler when he's healthy. Those are all deep threat guys. Those are guys who can stretch the field. Not guys you want to throw, you know, 5-yard in routes to, or just like dump and check the ball down to. Those are guys who are legitimate deep threat weapons. And with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback and with Pat Shurmur's offensive scheme, just really isn't working all too well. And with the running game, I can't say I'm too big of a fan of how Gordon and Williams alternate. I would prefer to see it more on a play-by-play basis as opposed to a drive-by-drive. That way, I feel like their groove would be more in sync if they were doing play-by-play basis. If you do drive-by-drive, that's a lot of time on the bench for the other running back, and they can get cold quickly. And the offensive line also really isn't helping. We saw that with how much Bridgewater was getting pressured. The running game has been really affected by the offensive line. So if I'm the Broncos offense, I'm really worried because I think this just goes to show with Pat Shurmur that offensive schemes are more important than play calling. Like, no matter how good of a play caller you are, that can't fix a bad scheme. It just can't. If you don't have good schemes and good plays, then being a play caller or being a good play caller really is worthless. However, I don't think Vic Fangio gets fired yet, because if you fire Fangio, then you're really putting a hurt on what has been the bright spot for the Broncos this year, which has been their defense, which played really good. Only 17 points allowed. Understand it wasn't really a starting Browns offense. Yeah, their top 2 running backs out, but If you fire Fangio, I think the defense suffers, which is what keeping this team afloat. So if anything, I think Pat Shurmur is going to get the boot either tomorrow or within the next week, just because of how broken the Broncos offense is.